On the morning of November 13, 2022, the quiet college town of Moscow, Idaho, woke up to one of the most blood-curdling mornings in history. At exactly 11:58 a.m., a call came into 911 regarding an unconscious person. However, when officers arrived at the three-story White House at 1122 King Road, they weren't faced with a medical emergency, but a massacre. On the upper floors, for young university students, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernadle, and Ethan Chapin had been brutally murdered in their beds. The violence at the scene was so extreme that even seasoned detectives were visibly shaken. The most chilling part was that two other roommates were in the house that night. They claimed to have heard nothing and only called for help in the morning after sensing something was wrong. As news of the event broke, social media exploded. TikTok detectives, Reddit groups, and thousands of individuals launched a digital mobilization to find the killer. How could such a slaughter happen in a town like Moscow, where the crime rate was nearly zero? Footage of the victims' final moments began to surface. Kaylee and Madison were captured on camera at a food truck just hours before the incident. They were cheerful, laughing, and completely unaware of the horror awaiting them. Yet, the police had no suspect, no weapon, and no signs of forced entry. The killer had slipped inside like a part of the house, finished his grim work, and vanished into the winter cold. Despite weeks passing, the silence from the police frustrated the families and the townspeople. Rumors of a serial killer spread like wildfire. People began triple-locking their doors, and university students started fleeing the town. However, the FBI and local police were quietly scanning a massive mountain of digital data. Thousands of hours of security footage, cell phone signals, and license plates of vehicles passing the house that night were being analyzed. Eyes focused on one vehicle, a white Hyundai Elantra. This car had circled the house several times during the hours of the murders before speeding away from the scene. But who did the car belong to? By late December, the investigation stretched thousands of miles away to Pennsylvania. The police had placed Bryan Kohberger, a PhD student in criminology, under surveillance. Kohberger was an academic studying criminal psychology, specifically researching how criminals feel in the moment. Did a man who was an expert in his field think he had committed the perfect crime? When a DNA sample secretly taken from the trash can of the young man's family home matched genetic material found on a knife sheath left at the crime scene, the pieces fell into place. On the morning of December 30th, when SWAT teams breached Kohberger's door, the world was watching not just the capture of a killer, but the birth of a modern monster. Bryan Kohberger's arrest sent shockwaves globally because his profile was so atypical. He was a doctoral student in criminology at Washington State University, a man who studied the criminal mind at an academic level. Allegedly, he had even conducted anonymous surveys on social media, asking former offenders, "What were you thinking while committing the crime?" Kohberger appeared to be an academic monster who decided to practice in reality what he had mastered in theory. However, what surprised the police the most was that someone so knowledgeable made such a fatal mistake. He left the sheath of the murder weapon right next to the victims. When court documents were released, the statement from DM, one of the two surviving roommates, terrified the world. There wasn't just deathly silence in the house that night. DM had been woken up around 4 a.m. by strange noises coming from upstairs. She claimed she heard Kaylee's dog barking and someone saying, "There's someone here to help you." When she peeked out of her room, she saw a sight she would never forget. A man dressed in black, wearing a mask that covered his nose and mouth, with bushy eyebrows and an athletic build, walking toward her. DM stood frozen in a frozen shock, and the man simply walked past her and exited through the kitchen door without doing anything to her. This freeze response and the delay in calling the police were debated for months, but criminologists noted this was a classic traumatic reaction. The police used high-end digital detective methods to track Kohberger. It was discovered that the killer had scouted the house at least 12 times in the months leading up to the murders. Kohberger's phone had stopped pinging towers during the hours of the murders. He had intentionally put it on airplane mode or turned it off, but he forgot one thing: the digital brain of modern vehicles. When the white Elantra's movements were combined with highway cameras and neighborhood smart doorbell systems, Ring cameras? The car's every maneuver was mapped out second by second. Kohberger thought he had erased his digital footprint, but his physical shadow in the digital world betrayed him. Even stranger was Kohberger's behavior at school after the murders. He continued attending classes days later, listening without reaction as the Moscow murders were discussed in his criminology seminars. His peers noticed he was quieter and more distant than usual, but no one suspected a PhD student could be the perpetrator of such a massacre. Even during that long cross-country drive home to Pennsylvania with his father, he was unaware that the police were tailing him. When police saw Kohberger putting his trash bags into a neighbor's bin at midnight while wearing gloves, they knew he was in an active attempt to destroy evidence. This was the moment the thin line between a cold-blooded criminologist and a cornered criminal vanished. The moment Bryan Kohberger first appeared in court was a moment of confrontation for the town of Moscow and the entire world. Seeing a man who had spent his career writing the theory of crime sitting in the defendant's chair with a hollow gaze created deep unease. As the indictment was unraveled layer by layer, it became clear how Kohberger's dream of the perfect crime collapsed due to simple but vital errors. Modern forensics didn't just stop at DNA on a knife sheath. They used genetic genealogy, a revolutionary method that has solved cold cases in recent years. By comparing the crime scene DNA with public genetic databases, the police reached Kohberger's family and eventually Bryan himself. This was an inescapable fusion of digital and biological data. One of the most curious aspects during the trial was whether there was a connection between Kohberger and the victims. Chilling evidence of digital stalking surfaced during the investigation. Allegedly, Kohberger had become obsessed with at least one of the victim's social media accounts, sending her multiple messages that went unanswered. This raised the possibility that the case wasn't just a cold-blooded experiment, but the dark revenge of a rejected ego. When followers realized that Kohberger had hunted his victims in the digital world for months before that night, the scope of the case changed entirely. One of the most shocking moments of the trial was the defense's claim that Kohberger was simply out for a late-night drive. According to the defense, Kohberger suffered from insomnia and frequently took long night drives, and that night he was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. However, the prosecution presented evidence to demolish this. During the 2-hour gap when Kohberger's phone was off, the driving route of the white vehicle matched the shortest path to the victim's house perfectly. Furthermore, footprints found at the scene showed a striking similarity to Kohberger's shoe size and walking style. This man, described by his professors as a brilliant mind, had been so confident in his own intelligence that he forgot the hundreds of smart devices around him were silently watching. Today, the University of Idaho Murders remain at the forefront of the global agenda. This case is considered a turning point in modern criminal history because, for the first time, a criminology expert became a victim of the very system he studied. The house at 1122 King Road was completely demolished in late 2023 to honor the memory of the victims. However, the traces of what happened on that ground will remain forever in digital servers and court records. The Bryan Kohberger case showed us that crime is no longer just a physical act, but a data war involving the devices we carry in our pockets every second. No matter how knowledgeable or prepared a killer is, the modern world is now filled with invisible witnesses. The greatest lesson remaining from this tragedy is that while justice may sometimes move slowly, when technology and human determination combine, even the darkest secrets are destined to come to light. Bryan Kohberger may have dreamed of being remembered as a genius in criminology books. However, today he occupies the darkest pages of those books as a case study of a man who tore 4 young lives away from their dreams. And the quiet town of Moscow will never be the same again, because now everyone knows that behind even the most secure-looking doors, a shadow might be waiting. If you want to hear more dark and mysterious true crime stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.